Alright, good morning my friends. Let's see if we can get this to work. Maybe I'll have to back up a little while. Oh yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. No, I'm not going to do any editing or anything to try to fix this. I'm just going to boost the camera up with a little rock. We're going to go from there. So, it's Carpo here. How's it going? I guess between you and I is this little mint plant right here, which I'm not going to tear down just to make my video, so I'll just leave it. I actually walked up to this spot. You know, I like smoking cannabis, but I don't like smoking it right away in the morning. I like to wait until I've earned it. So I got up really early this morning and I went out hunting for mushrooms. Not psychedelic mushrooms, no, edibles. Medicinal mushrooms. And I found a few turkey tail mushrooms. But they were all a little too far gone. And the whole of the while, I was waiting and looking for just the right spot to sit down and just kick back. And by the time I got back to campsite, like 2 hours later, everybody was awake, and I told my wife that. I was like, I'm just looking for the right spot to smoke a bowl. She's like, you're out there in the woods and you can't find a right spot? And that really got, that's kind of, I don't know, it's exactly kind of comment. Like, what is not a good spot in the woods? And for example, if you're in the city and you're walking with your friends and you decide that you want to stop and I use smoking a bowl as an example because it's something that stoners understand, that people who smoke cannabis know that you want to find the right spot to just sit and smoke a bowl. So I guess to a lot of people it probably doesn't matter, but it's you're walking down the street and you see this little park and you might stop or sit under a tree or something. When you're out here, everything is beautiful. And that really kind of got me thinking when I was walking over here about the inconsistency of consistency, I guess. I don't know how to put it. When you're out here, there are no two places that look alike. You'll never find the same mushroom growing in the same spot, although it'll be close and in the similar spot. You'll never see rocks piled up in the same rock pile after the winter. And when I was coming out and I sat down here to make this video, I had trouble setting up my camera, as you noticed at the beginning. I first hung it on a tree, and then I looked around for a flat spot, and there wasn't one. And that's beautiful to me. The only flat spot in the woods is on the river. And you sure as hell can't put your camera on the river, so I'm sitting actually next to a what it looks like a little trapped water group, those little water skippers, and I'm sitting on an area that probably floods out in the middle of the deep winter or the spring. And as soon as I sat down to make this video, smelled this plant just wafting up, you know. It's a mint. I don't think it's peppermint. Anyhow, it's wild mint. And there's like this beautifully tied together system out here. I don't know if I mentioned this before, and I may have mentioned it in a video the other day that I made out here, but that the mushrooms of the forest are really the masters of the forest. They are the decomposers. And one thing that amazed me is how they will wait for a tree to be in its death throes before they will consume it. If you're walking through the woods looking for mushrooms, often one of the secret of the mushroomers is looking for dead trees. It's not really a secret, but to the average person, they may just walk around foraging, not knowing any better. Looking for, say, a giant dead Douglas fir that's broken off halfway up and has shelf mushroom all the way up it, which shelf mushroom are those beautiful mushrooms that grow like globs on the sides of trees, also known as polyphores. If you see those, then there's a likelihood that underneath that tree there may very well be other types of mushrooms. They are the great decomposers, but they don't just decompose fresh trees. And I asked myself, well, is nature innately intelligent enough to know to wait until the trees are dying? Or Do the trees have natural protection against the fungus until they die? Or does it really matter? The point being that nature has an innate intelligence. Nature is not, I won't get into the debate about evolution, Darwinism, creationism. None of that is relevant to me. All I need to know is that the world I exist in this poor part of my life, is intelligent. And people scoff and laugh at that when people talk about, nature being intelligent. But I would ask, what is intelligence? If you're trying to define natural intelligence by the intelligence of a human, then you just don't get the point. That's the whole thing. If you are trying to define intelligence by a human, then tell me how an anthill works. It's a community. It's a community that works on individuals performing their tasks. Individuals who, as individuals, would never get anything accomplished and would quickly die out. But working together, those ants can create great things. And they don't have to think that they're special, and they don't have to acknowledge that they're intelligent. They just know they are. Humans are the same way, but we seem to try to work against each other instead of together. But the larger the animal gets, the more it seems to be individualistic, or at least smaller groups. A lot of whales are solitary. I think most whales are solitary. Elephants do walk in herds, so that's a different one for land mammals, but many animals do their own thing, let's just say. Whereas when you get down into the fungal kingdom, as well as the cells within your body, your cells are working as a team. Each one of those, you can't say that one cell is intelligent. But how in the hell does the cell know what to do? The cell knows because DNA has programmed it to do that. Well, how does DNA know the programming? And it gets into this debate about how intelligence works, whether human consciousness defines intelligence, or whether the intelligence is just too far beyond us to understand it. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it doesn't matter. If you really feel it, if you really start to see it without trying to define and explain it, it all makes sense. And it's difficult because you want to express that to people. You want to say, don't you see how all of this works? And people would say, sure, the trees grow. Yeah, there's fungus in the soil, if they even know there's fungus in the soil, which is a majority of most of the forests, is the mycelium in the soil. The largest organism on Earth is the mycelial mat. It's underground in eastern Oregon. So, these mushrooms know when to break the trees down. They know exactly how to perform their tasks. And meanwhile, they're producing compounds like DMT and psilocybin, which psilocybin is a form of DMT, but DMT and psilocybin are completely different. For those who don't know this, they are completely different. In my opinion, there's nothing similar about them whatsoever, but it seems that psilocybin is an orally active form of DMT, and that nature has perhaps created it as a way for us to get in touch with the network, to see things on a deeper level. Or maybe it's just a random chemical that interacts with our brains and makes us feel a certain way. But the depth of the experience is something that can't be ignored. I find that to be an amazing thing. I'm between two streams right now, so I guess I'm kind of on an island. But before I go, I'll show you this natural intelligence I've been talking so much about today. From the beginnings of the earth, life has been tenacious and tried to take hold. The very earliest single-celled organisms evolved into these amazing creatures with adaptations that go above and beyond what a person would think to be chance. But now I'm starting to understand in my 40s now what faith really means. And faith has nothing to do with the church. Faith has nothing to do with God. Yet it can be applied to that. When I looked back on what my ancestors believed and the realities they created for themselves to explain the world around them, it's easy to scoff at them and say, well, they created gods because they didn't understand and they didn't know any better. And as you research religion, you start to see that only people who aren't willing to look deeper take religion on its face value. But the more you dig in, the more you understand the roots of it. That it's put in a way that people can understand because that's what people want. But when it comes to the faith part, that's something I've never quite understood. As a younger gentleman, I would say, hey, if you believe something, you should be able to at least prove it's true. And in recent years, I stopped caring. I never really cared much, but I started to allow myself to see things on a different level, that the real truths that matter in life don't need to be proven, don't need to be justified, don't need to be explained to anybody. And all the people who are doubters and haters, screw them. However, if you believe something that calls doubters and haters in to argue with you, and you're not willing to back it up and defend it, or else just walk away from it. In other words, if you sit and try to define it and try to explain how you feel without actually just understanding and respecting the other person's view of it, it will go nowhere. So an individual has to seek their own solace, I guess, their own comfort to the world around them, and to really accept it for what it is. My faith is seeing that there's a deeper meaning to everything, and that meaning is just what we give it. And I've actually had people ask me, hey, what do you think the meaning of life is? I say, you're living it, buddy. You're living it. This is the meaning of life, to live. Namaste.